right?
No.
You hear about blood shortages, right? At least I hear about it a lot in the vampire forums, but history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
We received an email from Alexandra. It was on a Monday. I'm just going to preface that there. We received this on a Monday. She wrote, "Hey guys, I'm a moderately long-time listener. I love your show, and when I saw this story pop up on my Facebook, I thought, who would be better to tell this story than stdwytk? And here we are. I'm attaching a link to a recently discovered international cult that started 20 minutes from where I grew up. It's called The Body. And if you haven't already heard of it, it's a religious, faith-based cult. I won't go into details. Most of them are in a link below, and you may be able to find some other information on it that I cannot find. The wow factor here is that this is a freshly unearthed underground cult that started many, many years ago with only a select few families from the area. It does have very awfully triggering events, and I hope you can do a show on it. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear it come from you guys. Much love forever and always, Alexandra." Oh, that is very, very sweet. So thank you for sending that, first of all. But also no thank you. Because I woke up on Tuesday, read this, and I went down a rabbit hole. And I lost most of my Tuesday, Alexandra, so thanks so much. I'm joking. I'm totally joking. Thank you, seriously, because it was a rabbit hole that was well worth my time and I think our time. So you mentioned it. A cult, a religious organization called The Body. The link you sent us was thebodyintl or international.com. And if you follow that link, if you go there, you can learn all about this group. There are some humans running that site that have been doing research on this cult, The Body, for quite a while. And they've posted a ton of information. They've also included a video that is prominently posted there on the site titled "The Land of the Body, an Alaskan Cult Story." It is, I believe, by Syran Warner, Syranwarner. And this is a fairly extensive documentary that goes through some investigations of the body that have been occurring for some time. I guess, Ben, the best thing to do here is to start with what the website, the Body INTL, says about this group. So I'm going to read verbatim here from that site. Quote, "The Body is an active Christian fellowship that holds its services in the homes of members belonging to the congregation. The group started as an isolated collective made up of a few families on the Kenai Peninsula of Alaska, but has since become an international faith organization. Despite the Body being active and moving around the globe in recent years, they've remained an underground phenomenon for most of their history." It's an underground group started in the Kenai Peninsula of Alaska. What makes this group interesting or noteworthy? Well, you heard me say that the group holds its services in the homes of members, right? That's an important thing. Often groups like this start that way. A group of like-minded people begin holding meetings in one of the dwelling places of one of the members, and then it expands out and it grows. In the case of the Body, and at least according to that YouTube documentary that I mentioned, they began very quickly, as these groups do, taking in large donations from members, from very committed members. And those donations were used to purchase a massive amount of property on that Kenai Peninsula. And this includes members selling their homes where they lived, often with their families, which included children, and donating the money to the church, then being given property by the group, by the Body, on that large swath of property. So a small space, right? A tract of land out there where they could go and build their own tent or whatever structure so that they and their families, again, including often children, could live and then just live in a congregation on that property. That's physically how this began, how it started, right? The question is, what makes this thing a cult, right? What are the teachings that make this thing a cult? Is there a leader involved? Is somebody who is maybe manipulating the flock in some way or another, or at least, using money in a way that you wouldn't want it to be used? There is a leader that is mentioned by name on that site. I think it's mentioned fully maybe once or twice. Other times the name is referred to, I'll say it as Mark B, someone named Mark B. I would say that from information gleaned on the website and in the YouTube documentary and a few other places, you can, if you wish, find out who this person is. You can find out a lot of information about this person if you wish to go down the rabbit hole that deeply, and about the various companies that have been founded, LLCs and other, I forget what it's called. It's the not-for-profit entities that have been formed.
501c3.
That's it, 501c3, things like Sought Out, ANPC. There are all kinds of names like that you can discover if you wish, such as Sage Mountain Studio, LLC. You can find all that stuff. You can track it down. We may do that in a further episode, but not right now. That's where kind of the money shifts around, right? The property shifts around through these LLCs and front companies. When it comes to the religion aspect, the teaching aspect, the body, as it was named, focuses on the physical body. Mm-hmm. The teachings have a lot to do with a passage that you can find in the Bible where Jesus washes the feet of people. And it's not like he's asking people to wash his feet. He is washing the feet of others, maybe those who are would be considered by society to be lesser than him. And it is a pretty powerful part of, in my opinion, a powerful part of the Bible of like help out those who need help, right? No matter what your situation is, you can always help someone who needs it. This group, the body, kind of morphs that, changes it, and makes that message, along with many other passages of the Bible, combines them into this message about how you need to know yourself physically, your own body. And you also need to know the bodies of others in your congregation, specifically the body of your leader. And you can just imagine where that goes.
Right. Yeah. I want to take a second and shout out an earlier YouTube video we did, which holds up, which will give you information. We'll give you some guiding points about how cults are started, or cultic organizations, as well as the pretty good, somewhat snarky, but pretty good bullet point list of how to tell what defines a cult. Because as we mentioned earlier on air, you don't need religion to make a cult. It's just a very easy entry point. Cults are really kind of a collection of tactics, more so than any solid specific beliefs. But yeah, I want to shout out, Matt, before we continue, just like you said, shout out Alexandra's excellent leak there to the Body International. That website is a treasure trove of information. And there was a really interesting thing, I know you saw it too, where they start talking about how the names can be so difficult, because names are just like any other thing you wear. Names are just a kind of clothing you put on yourself or an organization. And because this thing was called the Body, it should be no surprise that there are multiple cultic organizations or religious movements calling themselves the Body. The same reason, by the way, that if you look through the span of ancient human history, most ancient communities, their word for themselves is the people, or like the real people, or the actual people. So the Body can be a tricky thing, research-wise, to find the exact body. But they've done a good job, and you've done a bang-up job as well here.
Oh yeah, there's so much information, especially when it comes to where the body itself has moved after it morphed and became that thing called Sought Out for a while. Then that dissolved, but then the body continued on, and then it became another name that I honestly can't recall it in this moment. I don't want to search through my notes for it. But you can look at a place called Tonasket, Tonasket, Washington. You can search around for that. There's quite a bit of information on their activities there, and specifically that Sage Mountain Studio LLC. I want to just continue down that path of the religious teachings. In the documentary I mentioned, The Land of the Body, there's a section in here that I just want to read kind of verbatim, and I don't mean to take away from the documentary and the producers of that documentary. Watch it if you can, please. But I just want to talk about the weirdness, the ritual, the thing kind of at the heart of the teachings. So there were, as I said, tents as structures on this land that was purchased. There are many of them, other structures that were created. And in one of those structures, it was kind of like the holy place for the leader and a few other high-level members. And we mentioned the feet washing thing, changing that to the full body. I'm just going to read my notes as I was watching this. There was a person describing a common thing amongst cults where he says if there's, once you get in, if there's any contention inside, like if you create some kind of tension within the group, you'll get cut off from the place. And you know that often your family is involved there, and they're probably going to stay, but you'd get kicked out. So there's this heavy pressure to always stay in line, always do what you're told, to do anything that especially the leader, Mark, would ask you to do. He says, I would never have done the things. I never would have done what I was asked to do if I weren't afraid of being cut off. So this guy, Mark, comes out and or
Daddy, as he's known.
Oh, yeah, Daddy. This guy, Mark, comes out to this individual and he says, okay, it's your turn. He says, I have no idea what they were doing. We're on this church camp out. We're on the property there that we've discussed. I walk into the yurt. These two people, and these two men and two women, are dancing around like they're in a trance. They're speaking in tongues. They disrobe me. And now my father-in-law, he's saying this is my father-in-law, my boss, and the elder in the church took my clothes off of me. And the person doing the interview says, well, why did you let them do that? Like, why would you let them do that? And his response is, my job, my family. I'd be cut off if I didn't do what they told me to do. Then he describes Mark taking his bare hands, washing his whole body, even fondling me, every bit of me, for a while. He was speaking in tongues while he was doing it. And when he was done, he said, now touch my body. Touch every part of my body.
Mm-hmm.
And this is as the documentary continues, this was a ritual, essentially, that would occur with many members of the institution, men, women, and then it's described that children, at least people who were around 16 years old, were subject to it as well. That's why it seems to be very dangerous, at least to my ears, to my mind, and something that needs to be looked at.